This, therefore, was not an al-shabaab terrorist attack. Evidence indicates that local political networks were involved in the planning and execution of the heinous crime.
Terror or politics, the contradicting theories of Mpeketoni attack.
I speak this without a fear of contradiction. What we saw in Mpeketoni is ethnic cleansing, Mr. Speaker, sir.
If we try to politicize security, if we try to trivialize something, this country belongs to all of us, and we have to protect the lives that are lost. Many of them get out.
A house divided, acrimony in Parliament over Mpeketoni killings.
The passing of a general, former Army Chief Jackson Muling dies in Nairobi.
And setback from The Hague, Ruto loses bid to stop forced testimonies.
KTN Prime with Linda Agutu and Ben Kitili.
Hello, it is Tuesday, June 17th, 2014. This is KTN Prime, live from the Standard Group Center.
Many thanks for joining us. We begin with President Uhuru Kenyatta's take on the Mpeketoni attack, a statement which has taken the country by storm and triggered heated debates in the Senate and the National Assembly.
President Uhuru says the government has evidence pointing to political networks being involved in the planning and execution of the Mpeketoni attack that has left nearly 60 dead. As
KTN senior political reporter Sam Oguna reports, the president dismissed the theory that the al-shabaab carried out the atrocities despite the terror group claiming responsibility for the attacks.
After 2 consecutive nights of killings in Mpeketoni and Kasarai in Lamu County, nearly 60 Kenyans are dead. That is the number of deaths and hours that jolted President Uhuru Kenyatta to finally address the nation over the massacre. And the president is now quite categorical, saying the orgy of killings was politically motivated.
This, therefore, was not an al-shabaab terrorist attack. Evidence indicates that local political networks were involved in the planning and execution of the heinous crime.
This despite the al-shabaab insurgency group claiming responsibility for the 2-night attacks. The American news agency ABC has also widely quoted the al-shabaab military spokesman Abdulaziz Abu Musahab as confirming that they indeed carried out the attacks.
The attack in Lamu was well planned, orchestrated, and politically motivated ethnic violence against the Kenyan community with the intention of profiling and evicting them for political reasons.
Top security officers in the county have been interdicted and will be charged for their lives lost. The president says intelligence reports on the impending attacks were relayed but not acted upon by the officers.
They are facilitators and collaborators of terrorists and criminal activity and must be discarded from the system and dealt with firmly.
In a veiled reference to the opposition coalition for reforms and democracy called rallies, the president warned the Saba Day protagonists against polarizing and inciting the nation to chaos.
Those unwilling to work to unite Kenyans will not have the space to divide them. There is no constitutional protection for hate speech, incitement, and other abuses of free speech.
In a terse statement, the president has declared zero tolerance to propaganda to plant seeds of discord among Kenyans, saying essentially those leaders were reckless, preparing ground for easy radicalization and crime on their followers, and further create a scene for easy thriving of terrorists to inflict damage and destruction in the country.
Reckless rhetoric, incitement, and negative propaganda do not constitute responsible leadership and will not be tolerated.
The opposition had lined up 13 political rallies across the country, whose culmination is the Sabasaba Day. CORD handing government an ultimatum to convene a national dialogue conference before the Sabasaba Day. But highly placed sources indicate leaders culpable of hate speech will be arrested.
My deputy and I undertook to make sure that the country will never go the route of ethnic division and political violence. I reiterate that Kenya will not go that route again. We will not allow Kenya to go down this violent path again.
It is government's statement of intent to nip in the bud CORD coalition on its planned rallies. The government saying there is no constitutional privilege shielding anyone for inciting the country to anarchy. Samogina, KTN, Nairobi.
That statement by the president takes us to a big question tonight, and we are asking you, do you support Uhuru's claim that the Mpeketoni attacks were politically instigated?
Let us know what you think. You can send a short message to the number 22155. You can tweet us at KTN Kenya, at Mpeketoni, and at Linda Ogutu. We'd love to sample your opinions during this bulletin.
Now, those events in the Lamu County and the statement by the president turned the two houses of parliament into arenas of showdown between CORD and Jubilee members of parliament. Both Senator James Orengo and Member of Parliament Militia got themselves kicked out. KTN's Joy Dorin Bira has the drama.
I want to send my condolence.
The National Assembly and the Senate exploded after President Uhuru Kenyatta's statement on the Mpeketoni killings. Emotions ran high and words were thrown back and forth as CORD and Jubilee MPs differed on whether the Mpeketoni attacks were terror-related or politically incited.
It is not a must that you must lead. You must lead. Mr. Speaker, you must wait for 2017. You can't massacre our people. You cannot massacre our people. You want to ascend to leadership through the blood of our people.
An attack on Kenya by terrorists or whichever militia group is an attack on the very fabric that joins us together. If we try to trivialize, if we try to do the blame game, before even the intelligence is out, we start now saying it must be this person, it must be this person, we will not get to the root cause of this problem.
Why do you have to go there in public rallies and incite Kenyans? I want to quote, Mr. Speaker, one of the things that was said in one of the rallies, Mr. Speaker, sir. And I quote, "It is better to die than to live in slavery. We will shed down, the donkey will shed down, the Lord come Sabasaba." Mr. Speaker, it continued to say, ukiona mwenzako anyolewa, chako kitie maji.
But these remarks made by Member of Parliament Runyenjes made Mbita Member of Parliament Militia too furious to contain herself.
Since when, Mr. Speaker, sir, did the terrorists differentiate between a Kikuyu, a Kalenjin, a Luo, a Kisi, a Kamba, Mr. Speaker, sir? Since when did the terrorists know that there are certain people who must be cleansed before others? Mr. Speaker, sir, I speak this without a fear of contradiction. What we saw in Mpeketoni is ethnic cleansing, Mr. Speaker, sir. It is not terrorism, Mr. Speaker, sir. It is not terrorism. And if we must take care of our statements, those statements must start with the leader of CORD, Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga. In this country,
she got kicked out of the house.
You have no business shouting from where you're sitting. Out for the rest of the day. Get out. Many of the get out. Get out of here. Get out. Get out. Honorable Mili Odhiambo, get out. Out.
At the Senate, CIS Senator James Orengo also got kicked out by the Speaker Ekwe Ethuro. Joy Doreen Bira, KTN.
That was inside Parliament. Now outside Parliament, it was a different kind of reaction. The government came under pressure as religious leaders and politicians urged President Uhuru Kenyatta to take action over the security situation in the country. Court MPs say they will sponsor a motion to remove Interior Cabinet Secretary Joseph Ole Lenku from office.
With fresh attacks in Lamu County, the government, which on Monday announced it had beefed up security, was on the spot. Religious leaders under the Inter-Religious Council of Kenya turned the heat on the Uhuru Kenyatta administration.
We thus call upon His Excellency the President to do all that is within his powers to protect the lives and the properties of all Kenyans. This is the time for the government to move with speed. It's time for the government to be seen to act.
The Catholic Justice and Peace Commission asked the government to rethink its security measures with emphasis on intelligence.
The national government ought to reorganize and reorient the national intelligences to focus more on collecting criminal intelligence as opposed to political intelligence.
Some politicians agree.
They're even supposed to read body language, facial expressions. That's what we call intelligence.
CORD wants Interior Cabinet Secretary Joseph Ole Lenku to step aside. The coalition says it will sponsor a censure motion to remove him from office.
Lazima Ole Lenku aende. Kwa sababu yeye amekuwa ni Ole Lenku, ole wetu, ole wao. Hakuna chochote ambacho Wakenya wanatumainia kwake. Ukimuona yeye ni kama kikaragosi.
We are proceeding with the censure motion through Honorable Ken Obura is to pass a message that we are not happy with what is happening at the moment and we want a change in the security system.
The Law Society of Kenya has given Ole Lenku and the Inspector General of Police David Kimayo a 14-day ultimatum to resign or have the LSK institute their removal. The National Assembly's Administration and National Security Committee too is calling for action.
Enough is enough, and we want to call upon our President to crack the whip, to actually do changes within our security system, because it can't be business as usual.
With a second attack in as many days, the search for answers over what went wrong in Lamu County continues, and the government will increasingly come under pressure over the country's security situation. Rita Tinina, KTN, Nairobi.
So, on the question, we are still on this Mpeketoni attack issue, and we are asking you, coming from the president's statement, do you support Uhuru Kenyatta's claim that the Mpeketoni attack were politically motivated?
Let us know what you think. You can send a short message to the number 22155. You can tweet us at KTN Kenya, at Linda Ogutu, at Ben Kitili. We will sample some of your views as we go on with this bulletin. Kitili, you want to sample some?
Yes, Stephen Joyce says there is some evident element of what the president is saying, but the government failed terribly to act on intelligence.
Sydney Kibet says, no, they're just looking for someone to blame. The advisors are trying to be relevant.
Keep them coming. The SMS number is 22155 and also via our Twitter and Facebook accounts. The president says that security officers from Mpeketoni have been suspended for ignoring warnings on this latest attack. What the president did not say is whether the security chiefs in charge of intelligence sharing will also face the axe. KTN's Asha Muling now reports on the glaring contradictions from the president's address.
This is the first time after extremist group al-shabaab claimed an attack that the Kenyan government has refuted that claim.
This, therefore, was not an al-shabaab terrorist attack.
It's also the first time since President Uhuru took office that heads will roll for the loss of innocent lives.
Intelligence on this attack was availed to security officers in Mpeketoni. Unfortunately, the officers did not act accordingly. This negligence and abdication of duty and responsibility is unacceptable. Accordingly, all concerned officers have been suspended and will be charged immediately in a court of law.
security experts Francis Maina and Mwenda Mbijiwe dig deeper into the president's statement.
This form of attacks have happened in other nations like Nigeria, majorly in the north. That is the Boko Haram problem.
You see, local terrorism, like that what happened, it might have credentials from al-shabaab. The prayers who killed Kenyans in Mpeketoni, they might have access to the connection of al-shabaab. And after they do it, they tell al-shabaab take the responsibility.
Apart from the officers that the president has said, of course, from Mpeketoni, that they're going to face criminal charges at the court, we don't know what charges exactly. Who else do you think should face the axe?
The reason why we have security lapse and security breakdown, there is very little or no supervision.
It is possible that the intelligence didn't exactly pick the magnitude, because had there been the magnitude, then they would definitely bring on board, they would come and bring more security.
All the officers in their dockets of the Interior Ministry, those who are in charge, with and without mentioning their names or whatever, I think everybody is time to go and let other people, newcomers, do it their way.
Both Mwenda and Francis agree that the country's intelligence agency has been left exposed. If the president says that intelligence was not acted upon, why are top bosses in charge of this intelligence not on the chopping board? And if these officers got information from locals and sat on it, how many more police officers are turning a blind eye to crucial information that could avert a future attack? The president's statement, it appears, has just opened another can of worms.
Together, we shall grow and keep rising.
Ashamwilu, KTN, Nairobi.
You're watching KTN Prime. Thank you so much for staying with us. In just a few minutes, I will be speaking to Andrew Franklin, a security expert, a former Marine who's lived in the country for 33 years. He will be trying to share his experience on what he knows about groups like al-shabaab in the region and what we're looking at the assertion made today by President Uhuru Kenyatta that the attack in Mpeketoni was actually politically motivated. Let's see how that goes in a few minutes. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
The government is just too relaxed, because what I heard our deputy president saying that it's just the dying horse, something of the dying horse, and yet they keep on killing and killing and killing. So when it comes to security, I don't trust the government.
You're watching KTN Prime.
Thank you for staying with KTN Prime. We're still focusing on the Mpeketoni attacks and that announcement that was made today by President Uhuru Kenyatta saying that attack was not carried out by al-shabaab. I'm joined in studio by Andrew Franklin. He is a security expert and a former Marine who's lived in Kenya for over 33 years. Thank you so much for joining us on KTN tonight. Yesterday we had a statement from al-shabaab claiming responsibility for the attacks in Mpeketoni. Today we have President Uhuru Kenyatta saying this has nothing to do with al-shabaab. What do you make of the two?
Well, al-shabaab has never claimed responsibility for something it didn't commit. In fact, the recent events with buses being blown up on the Thika Highway, bombs going off in Kikamba and elsewhere, the big controversy has recently been that they haven't claimed responsibility for these terrorist acts. The level of organization that went into this attack on this settlement area involved a tremendous amount of logistics, a lot of ammunition, automatic weapons, and planning. It wasn't just hit and run. These are not cattle raiders. This is not clashes that we've seen in the past. This is fairly sophisticated, and I'm concerned that the ability to overrun a police station, to steal weapons, to essentially run riot in a town for 4.5 hours, killing men of a particular ethnic group is true, but also Christian. In other words, this is a target that intelligence should have picked up because it is an anomaly in Lamu County, although not the demographic shift in the last 20 years has seen many so-called Kenyans moving to these areas inhabited by ethnic Somalis and other people. So that what you have now is a situation where these are targets. We need to look at how many other settlement towns are exposed.
Okay, we're looking at how many other settlement towns are exposed, but let's look at the attack and the hallmarks of it. Let's look at the targets. These people went burning banks, hotels, they went to the police station. From your experience, you've worked in the region, what does that point you to?
It points me to al-shabaab, because apparently there wasn't even a mosque in that town. This is very typical of the kinds of attacks in Wajir and Garissa and Mandera since October 2011. The attacks on churches that were located in police compounds at the end of June 2012, less than about a month after Asanan's Expo was blown up, indicates that they're targeting the outsiders, the aliens in this environment, because the demographic shifts. They're targeting hotels where liquor is sold. They're dividing the newcomers, the people who have moved into these areas in the last 30 years or 20 years, who've set up businesses, the security forces. They're dividing them from the bulk of the native population or the indigenous population.
All right, hold on to that thought. In just a few minutes, we'll be getting back to that discussion. Let's look at the Mpeketoni attack and look at what's going on today. The killings in Mpeketoni continued for the second day running when 9 people were killed in the village of Kaisari, bringing the death toll to close to 60. Angry residents of Kibaoni set up roadblocks and set all tires on fire to protest against insecurity following the death, which came only a day after Interior Cabinet Secretary Joseph Olelengu gave his assurances. And as Ferdinando Mondi reports, locals in Mpeketoni area have left their homes to stay together in a bushy area for their safety on the advice of the government.
The T-junction in Kibaoni that connects Mombasa, Lamu and Mpeketoni was sealed off all round. Angry locals not allowing any vehicle in or out following news that 9 of their relatives and friends in the neighboring Kaisari area had been killed. Only a night earlier, 48 people were shot dead or slaughtered in an orgy of violence around Mpeketoni and Kibaoni. The government was swift to condemn the attack and promised the locals that they would be kept safe. That promise appeared broken within 24 hours and the natives were furious.
Sasa hapa nilipo sijui hata watoto wangu wako wapi, hata tujui vile wamelala wako waje, maana sisi tumelala kichakani. Hatuelewi ni sasa serikali inachukulia hatua gani. Hakuna chochote tunachoelewa. Sasa hizi tunaongea hapa. Hata sasa hivi mnaona hapa hatuna security yenyewe ya kutosha. Kwa hivyo tuko katika hali ya hatari.
All manner of transport was turned back as they made their barricade even larger, demanding for answers. Top government officials, including the GSU commandant, the AP commander and the county commissioner rushed to the scene to help arrest the situation that was threatening to get out of hand.
Kuwa na amani, lakini sasa amani imekosa. Na bado wao wenyewe kiwa watu wanasema mwambieni huyo Uhuru kwamba sisi ndio tunafanya hivyo na tutaendelea kufanya hivyo
kabla ya saa 6 mchana, ya kwamba hizo sehemu zenu kuwe na maofisa wa kutosha wa kuchunga usalama.
But the police bosses were at pains to explain how the same precinct could be attacked in spite of the increased presence of law enforcers.
We are investigating what happened on the ground. We want to know if it was our weakness. We are going to take necessary action against any officer who did not perform.
It was a treacherous journey trying to access Kaisari village. Our double cab got stuck and no amount of pushing and pulling could get it out of the swamp. The only option was to strap our bags to our backs and walk the rest of the way. In the skies, Cabinet Secretary Joseph Olelengu flying to condole with the bereaved. Along the paths, we met scores of people fleeing their homes. It was no longer safe here. We then learned that they have been advised to abandon their homes and stay together where they can be protected collectively. But we somehow could not reach our destination. We've been walking for over an hour now trying to get through the area, but every spot we meet people, they keep on telling us we have 1 hour to go, and that was from 1.5 hours ago. And what we're seeing are people who are moving from the attacked village. What they are telling us is that the government, specifically the CS Olelenko, who was just flown out of there, has advised them to move out of the village, saying it's not safe, so that they can all converge to another village down here known as Kitale. We then came across the truck, which led us to a clearing where we found the truck carrying the bodies of the Kaisari dead. A lorry ferrying security reinforcement was stuck, so all hands were on deck. Here, a man who says he survived the village attack by hiding after the sound of the first bullet recounts how the murders were carried out.
Walikuwa wakikuuliza jina yako mwanzo, kisha baadaye walikuwa wanakuitisha kitambulisho. Alafu baadaye walikuwa wakuuliza kwamba huko unakaa ni wapi. Ukikwambia ni kwako, wanakuuliza umetoa shamba wapi.
The second round of killings are convincing the people of Mpeketoni that there could be another reason behind the killings. After a 10-kilometer walk, we are persuaded that reaching Kaisari may not be wise, so we turn back and head for Kitale, the village where everyone has been asked to convene for security reasons. But when we get there, the location is largely bushland. Men, women and children clearing tall grass and shrubs to make space for the night, with a promise that tents and police are on their way.
Ni huzuni nyingi sana, manake tuna watoto wadogo ambao hata wengine walizaliwa juzi, tena tunakuja kulala kwa baridi hapa, tukiwa tuna majumba yetu, tuna mambo zetu ndani ya majumba, hata mimea yetu yuko huko, tunaiacha, inaweza kuliwa na wanyama mwitu, hata sasa tujui tutafanya nini.
The irony of your own government telling you to run away from home before it can guarantee your security. And so hundreds of families will spend the night here out in the bush, clearing out to make what will be a temporary shelter for fear of terrorists who come to their houses at night looking for their men to shoot or hack them dead. This is not exactly what you can call home, but this is where they may feel safe, at least for now. Ferdinand Omondi, KTN, Kitale, Lamu County.
Ferdinand Omondi there reporting on the latest from Mpeketoni. In studio, I'm with Andrew Franklin, security expert who has lived in the country for over 33 years. Thank you for staying with us. Just listening into Ferdinand Omondi's story, there is a bite from a woman who says people would come ask for identity cards and they would ask you, where have you gotten land? And the president says this is not al-shabaab. What are the chances really that maybe there's a militia-like group at the coastal region that is doing this?
Well, the militia group that would be doing it might be the MRC, except that they are legal. And their armed wing seems to be very ineffective, although it did attack the police on March 4th, 2013, on Election Day, and then subsequently. But it doesn't seem to have the weapons. It doesn't have the organization. And by being legal, the real question becomes, why would they suddenly go after a group of people in a small corner of Lamu County? I don't see any. They're not going to ethnically cleanse the coast. There's no real chance of that. And as a result, the fact that al-shabaab took responsibility for this attack, the fact that they seem to be in the area, hence the 9 additional dead, the real question is, where are the police we saw on the ground who came to reinforce?
Yes, because more people died overnight.
Yes. Where are the police now that civilians are now being told to go sit in the bush where it's safe? Are they being guarded by police? I didn't see any tents. I saw no effort by the security forces to protect these people.
Basically, not so much is being done.
I would suggest very little, if anything, is now being done. The real problem is that who owns the night in that area? Is it a militia or is it the police? Is it the military or is it a militia? Is it al-shabaab? In essence, who controls the area when the sun goes down? And based on Sunday night, it seems that whether it's a militia or al-shabaab, which did take responsibility for this attack, they control the night.
Oh, all right. This country has been choking with insecurity for a while now. You are an expert in this area. What are we doing wrong as a country?
No, we're not doing anything wrong as a country. The leadership on both sides of the political divide is they're not looking at the laws. The laws that have been passed since the new Constitution was enacted in 2010, the National Police Service Act, has not been implemented. We have no unified police service in this country yet. The Kenya Defense Forces Act, passed in August of 2012, the KDF now is full of fine troops, fine officers. They're now being kept inside the borders of this country to assist the police. What this does, it means that we don't see a need to actually implement the National Police Service Act, and by the same token, we're not actually implementing the KDF Act of 2012. We're not putting into place the reforms that are in these acts to actually give us a modern security structure. When someone talks about reorganizing the National Intelligence Service, the real question is, why don't we implement the NIS Act of 2012, the National Security Council Act? These are fine pieces of legislation which actually hang together. They make a lot of sense, but we're not implementing anything.
All right, so we have so many things that we're not implementing. Probably that's why we are here. Thank you so much for joining us on KTN Prime and for speaking to us. Andrew Franklin, security expert, former Marine who has lived in the country for over 33 years, sharing his experience on what's going on in the country. Now, retired Kenya Armed Forces General Jackson Kimeo Muling has died at the age of 91 after a long illness. According to his eldest son, Ambassador James Muling, the late Muling died early this morning at Nairobi Hospital following difficulties in breathing. The late Muling was the longest-serving head of Kenya's armed forces and the first Kenyan military officer to be awarded the rank of full general. In 1982, General Muling is best remembered to have marshaled his forces and crushed a coup attempt against then President Daniel Arap Moi. He served in the military for 40 years before he retired and later joined politics. Muling was elected Member of Parliament for Kathiani constituency in 1992 and served for one term. He was appointed to the cabinet and served as Minister for Lands and later Health. In his message of condolence, former President Moi said he learned of Muling's death with profound sense of loss. Moi described Muling as one of the bravest and professional soldiers the country has ever produced. President Uhuru Kenyatta described Muling as a hard worker full of valor and recognized Muling's role in thwarting the two attempted coups in Kenya in 1971 and 1982. You're watching KTN Prime. Thank you so much for staying with us this far. We are taking a short break. We'll be right back.
300%. Government figures show the National Treasury received bids amounting to 696 billion shillings from foreign investors against a target of 174 billion. This comes after a 10-day international campaign led by Cabinet Secretary Henry Rotich in the US, United Kingdom, Germany and the Middle East. The bond issue, whose transaction was sealed off on Monday, attracted overwhelming interest, particularly from pension funds, insurers and sovereign wealth funds, with sources within the government saying the money would be wired in the government account at Central Bank before Monday next week. Analysts reckon that the high demand is an endorsement of Kenya as an investment destination. The low yields coupled with high investor interest are also said to be a reflection of perfect timing for issuing of the bond. The bond is expected to settle a syndicated loan of 52.2 billion.
It's actually 2 billion is not much. If you think about it, the American Federal Bank was picking up at least $85 billion worth of U.S. treasuries every month. Okay, right now it has tapered that down to $65 billion. But you can imagine 65 billion for US versus 2 billion for Kenya. It's not much.
That's really good news to the country. We are therefore going to receive the revenue that we had anticipated to receive, so that projects that had been budgeted for in this financial year can be completed.
Kenyan firms can now host their websites locally and at low cost following the successful relocation of the Kenya Internet Exchange Point. Adelaide Jengole explains.
The decision on where to host the servers at service any company's system is a sensitive one, with the company seeking to host the servers in the safest location with the most contingencies.
Those facilities did not have redundant power. They didn't have sufficient cooling, and also the fire management systems and access control a bit of a challenge.
As a result, Kenyan companies have opted to host their servers in Europe, something that has led to higher internet costs and longer connection times as internet traffic has had to move out of Kenya to international networks. Moreover, it made companies very susceptible to downtime anytime the fiber optic networks were cut. But that could soon change as the Kenya Internet Exchange Point relocates to the East African Data Center.
Through the partnership that we have with KXP, we've been able to make it a lot more easier for any local or global communication service providers to cross-connect to KXP.
As Africa's fastest growing IXP, we are ensuring that Kenya is taking its place as not only the hub for ICT in East Africa, but a global player in terms of exchange points.
The exchange point currently facilitates the Kenya Revenue Authority to receive online income tax reports from citizens as well as clearing customs for importers. As such, experts hope the move to host the exchange point at the East African Data Center, which guarantees 99.98% availability of data, will inspire more local firms to host their servers locally.
All of you who are hosting in Amsterdam, hosting in London, hosting in Canada, hosting in the US, you need to come and host locally.
Adelaide Changole, KTN Business.
Well, you need to come and host locally. Who is hosting locally? Residents of Kisumu County can now look forward to cheaper access to clean water after the completion of Kajulu water treatment plant that will erase or rather ease reliance on lake water. Here's KTN's Fred Omulo with that report.
The Vision 2030 project on the source of River Kibuz next to the scenic Nandi Hills brings on board 80% of the daily pumped capacity, a development that will ease pressure on Lake Victoria. Until its launch last month, the county was reliant on lake water that would be pumped to clients with Kiwasco's electricity bills standing at 10 million shillings every month.
This will bring huge benefits for Kisumu in terms of its water supply, health status of the people, the cost of water, again, will also be addressed by the utility.
Kajulu is also the site where British colonialists set up their first treatment plant in 1923 that used to pump 2,000 litres of spring water daily. It will serve the region until 2032 when plans are underway to construct a dam for increased capacity.
Mini hydropower will help us to address, again, any parts of Kisumu that will need a bit of pumping because gravity may not serve everybody in Kisumu. So now that pumping we shall subsidize with a mini hydropower.
The 590 million shilling plant is part of a multi-phased water provision project that has seen similar facilities built in other counties within the region, including Siaya, Migori, Nandi, Bomet, and Kericho. Fred Omulo, KTN Business.
And followers of African football in Brazil are predicting good progress by the continent's representatives, notwithstanding the fact that it's only Ivory Coast who have won the opening match among the African teams. Fans still believe there will be an African team that will better Ghana's 2010 performance. Hassan Juma reports from Sao Paulo.
Years ago, Ghana was bundled out in the quarterfinal stage by the hand of Luis Suarez. We hit the Sao Paulo streets to get a feel of how Africans think of the 5 teams' chances.
Cameroon played, they won them, and then Cote d'Ivoire played, they won. They won the opponent, you understand? But I think some of the African countries will move far a little bit. I think second round.
I believe that African country will do well this time. I'm encouraging them and support them to move forward. I think if they get to, we have not get to
final before. I think there's no African country that get to final before. But this time around, I believe that some countries will do well in Africa.
It's our time, yep. This is the time for the African team. I think the African teams are going to make it to the semi-finals.
The best that an African team has done in the World Cup finals is a quarter-final bags. But the black community here in Sao Paulo, Brazil, believe that the 5 teams have enough ammunition to go one better this time round. Hassan Juma, KTN, Sao Paulo, Brazil.
And well, that does it for tonight's edition of KTN Sports. Do join me tomorrow for another comprehensive bulletin of KTN Sports. I'm Lynn Washira. Do stay with KTN. Linda and Ben Kitili will be back to wrap up the bulletin.
Thank you for staying with KTN Prime. Tonight on our big question, we'd asked you if you support Uhuru's claim that the Mpeketoni attacks were politically motivated. 54% of you say no, 46% of you say yes.
Very closely tied there, and very few of your comments here. Sharon Ochieng on Twitter says, thank you, Andrew. That's talking to your earlier guest, Linda, saying, thank you, Andrew. Al-Shabaab has never taken responsibility of what they have not done.
Moshek says Kenya is treading on dangerous ground and both CORD and Jubilee are inflaming the situation. No real leadership. Those are your opinions. Thank you for writing in, for being part of KTN Prime. We'll see you tomorrow. I'm Linda Ogutu.
And I'm Ben Kitili. Good night from the Standard Group Center.